Rotarians and guests, welcome to the August 26th meeting of the Rotary Club of York. We are the 22nd largest Rotary Club in the world. Leading us today in our opening song and pledge is past District Governor Dick Brown, and providing our invocation is past District Governor Patty Rooney. Dick.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? No. Sorry about that. Now we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Gracious and almighty God, we gather here, give you thanks for the privilege of being able to serve in this body called Rotary. You've called us from far and wide to serve others above ourselves. You've called us and challenged us to find the means to assist others in their needs. And we give you thanks for the opportunity to continue that service in many and various ways. We give thanks for all the good that we have been permitted to do in this club and in our community. And we look forward with confidence to continue that service into your future. Bless our speaker as he shares with us information on the growth and development of our community and the way in which, working together, we help to sustain our city. We give you thanks for this day, for the fellowship we share, and ask that you would bless our club, our district, and all Rotarians throughout the world as they seek to serve others above themselves. And may all that we do this day be done to the glory of your most holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Dick and Patty, for a wonderful opening. And we have quite a few announcements to share with you today, Rotarians. We first will highlight two opportunities for your engagement. Number one, speaker suggestions for our weekly meetings are appreciated. Please share them with our program committee chair, Mike Summers. His email is on the screen for your convenience. Number two, questions for our 10th district congressional candidates, Congressman Scott Perry and Eugene DePasquale. Past President Mike needs your thoughtful and fair questions for the two congressional candidates. Our meeting next Wednesday will feature Congressman Scott Perry, and Eugene DePasquale will join us on October 7th. Since the candidates will appear on two separate Rotary programs, the questions can be either individual or for both gentlemen. Mike will moderate a conversation with each of these candidates. Please send your questions before this Friday, to Mike, so the conversation reflects what you want to know about each candidate's view. And next Wednesday, you're in for a double treat. It's the Summers Dream Team. They'll be in action. Thank you to President-elect Jackie Summers for leading our meeting next week. Our country, Rotarians, as you know, is dealing with fires in California, Hurricane Laura on the Gulf Coast, and from coast to coast, our children are attending childcare and returning to schools and colleges. Thank you to our educators, our administrators, school staff, bus drivers, cafeteria workers for the extra effort and planning that you have implemented to ensure the safety of all. We wish the best for all of our students, educators, and staff upon returning to schools, and also to those families who are working hard to support the education of their children from home. Yesterday was a very, very big day for Rotary International. Thank you to past president, or past district governor, of course, and past president Patty and Dick. They reminded me, so if it wasn't on the announcements, they would have made sure. Rotary International and the Rotary Foundation yesterday announced that the African region has been certified wild polio virus free. Patty talked about Rotarians coming from far and wide to be part of our club, and this is an example of how our club and others around the world have an impact far and wide. Rotary members have played an invaluable role in the effort to rid the African region of the wild polio virus. This progress is a result of decades-long effort across the 47 countries of the African region. It's involved millions of health workers traveling by foot, boat, bike, and bus. Innovative strategies to vaccinate children amid conflict and insecurity, and a huge disease surveillance network to test cases of paralysis and check sewage for the virus. Over the last 2 decades, countless Rotary members in countries across the African region and around the world have gathered together and worked hard to raise funds, immunize children, advocate with local and national leaders, and raise awareness about the importance of the vaccination, enabling the Global Polio Eradication Initiative to effectively respond to and stop polio outbreaks. Thank you for your gifts to the Rotary Foundation that have helped make this achievement possible. And I actually heard this, Patty was pleased to know that I heard this on the BBC last night. Also, thank you to our PPE committee. York Rotary Club partnered with the City of York's Parks Department to replace the welcome sign to York on East Market Street and Harrison Street. This will be the 3rd sign in that location, which seems to be a popular target for motorists at that intersection. Rotary maintains the gateways at the west and south entrances to the city and feels despite the risk, it's important to state that the City of York welcomes you no matter what direction you're coming from. Rotarians Dave Hoffman and Al Sykes, Parks Director Tom Landis, and City Park technicians George Jennings and Art Walls completed this latest installation. Thank you. Next, we have a birthday to celebrate. Happy birthday to you, Renee. Nifty, nifty, look who is a half century. Renee, you wear it well, and we all appreciate the excellent job you do as our office assistant extraordinaire. We wish you a wonderful birthday and a fantastic year. Next, I would like to welcome some proud dads up to the podium. First is John Toy with a membership announcement, but John, like many of our Rotarians, is transitioning children back to school, an 8th grader, a 6th grader, and a 1st grader. So thanks for being a great dad, John, and thanks for leading our membership committee.
Yes, thank you, President Ann. Appreciate that. And good afternoon, everyone. Great to join you virtually today as the chair of the membership committee. First off, I just want to stop by saying thank you. You know, we try to thank people as often as we can. In my business, I love doing that to my customers, but sometimes we don't get to say enough to each one of you. We really appreciate you being a member. It's very important to this club, and you make all the difference. So thank you for being a part of that. In addition to that, we have some very special people that we want to recognize today who continue to have perfect attendance, which is quite an accomplishment. As much as I'm involved in a lot of things, I still have not accomplished that. And I told you last year that I would match Diane Marino and get to that perfect attendance for the first time, and I failed. So a new goal for this coming year that I will continue to try to do. But we do want to especially recognize all these folks who have done it. I'll be reading those at milestones such as 1 year, 5 year, 10, 15, 20, and then our very special guest that we'll get to in just a minute that has achieved a very high milestone. Also want to let you know that while we're not able to shake your hand and hand you a nice certificate, we do have certificates available upon request. So please feel free to reach out to Bert if you would like to have a certificate to recognize for your years of attendance. So again, thank you very much. I'm going to read through these. You'll see the names listed on the screen. who are not, that I'm not reading, but we very much appreciate all of those between those milestone years as well. Continue to keep this up, and hopefully I'll be on there for next year. With 1 year, congratulations to these wonderful accomplishments of a year of perfect attendance. Wilda Alessi, Courtney Bailey, Dee Baker, Dennis Bachman, Greg Gromyko, Karen McCormick, Alan Roth, and Keith Smith. Congratulations, all of you, for 1 year of perfect attendance. Jumping down to 5 years, we have William Hunter, Tom McCracken, James Sanders, and Phil Woods. Another great accomplishment. Thank you all for 5 years of perfect attendance. Jumping all the way up to 10 years, and one who's really showing me up because we started at the same time, is past President Josh George. Congratulations, 10 years of perfect attendance. Well done. We jump up now to 15 years. Past President Dick Hershey and Walt Tilley. Congratulations to the two of you on 15 years of perfect attendance. Next, all the way up to 20 years. Quite an accomplishment. Past President Lou Elliker, past President Mike Summers, and past President Jim Walker. All three have something else in common as well. Thank you, men, for your service, as well as 20 years of perfect attendance. And as you see throughout, there are many with amazing accomplishments, several of those even between 20 and 26 years. Very exciting to be able to see that and continue to be a part of that. But our main announcement, the one we want to definitely recognize and accomplish, is Mr. Leon Butler. 30 years of perfect attendance. That is amazing. Far longer than I've ever been a member, and quite honestly, I won't tell you how old I was when he started. But what an accomplishment. Thank you, Leon, for that great example, being a mentor to many people, and your accomplishments as well in the community, and continuing to serve as a part of Rotary. We can't do this without all of you as members, and perfect attendance shows your devotion to this wonderful club. So thank you all. Keep up the great work, and hopefully I'll be on that list to join you next year.
Thank you, John. Appreciate the great work of your committee to keep our membership rolling forward, and congratulations to Leon and all of our Rotarians with perfect attendance. Appreciate that. Next, I'd like to ask Darren Smith to give us a fundraising announcement. And Darren, congratulations are in order for you. Darren and his wife had their first child. Henry was born on Sunday evening. So Darren, we wish you sleep-filled nights and hope that all are happy and healthy. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yes, they certainly are, and it's been wonderful. And yeah, so sleep is, I'll catch up someday, as you've all been through. So hello, everybody. As the Rotary fundraiser chair, first off, I want to say the most important thing. I'm limited to 2 minutes, so thank you all for the donations and everything you've given already in the signups. But what I want to say is we are CDC compliant. I know a lot of you out there have been concerned, and maybe you're waiting to sign up a little bit to the last thing, the minute, just to make sure it actually occurs and that everything's safe. We are following all the guidelines. We have worked very closely with the Country Club of York. They've put on several events over the past couple of months through these times that we're going through, and they have figured it all out. They know how to separate us all. They know how to do the food, how to do the beverage, and make sure they're compliant with all the new rules. So if you've been waiting, if you've been holding out, now's the time to sign up. Respond to those emails and calls that people have been reaching out to you for attending the event and donating, and we'll definitely have a place for you to have a lot of fun. So to go over a couple of details of what that exactly looks like, how are we CDC compliant? The table situation, we are going to be very likely outside. That is almost definitely going to happen, all on that upper patio on the front and the side. They have seating for 170, and we're going to have max 120, probably even a little less than that. So there's going to be plenty of space to spread out. If you want to sit at a table with less people, we can accommodate those kind of things and make sure you're taken care of. Only if it's torrential rains, we move inside, and even if that happens, we are still able to get everybody seated inside. Just a little difficulty with announcements and everything, but we'll figure that out. You'll at least get some food. We also, as a little spoiler alert, the gift this year is actually a neck gaiter. So those who show up and don't have their mask and we need to follow the guidelines, they'll be able to make sure that they're taken care of that way as well. Schedule is the same as always. Registration starts at 11 o'clock. Box lunch is at 11. Again, CDC compliant, keeping everybody apart. Pick your box up, go eat wherever you want. For the social hour and hors d'oeuvres is 4:30 p.m. Dinner is at 5:30. So you can mingle, spread apart, with whoever you'd like to at those times. The golf will start shotgun at 12 o'clock. Tennis at 1:30 is the registration for that. And we're still having croquet. I don't have the time for that. Bad news for the year is I think we're going to lose cornhole just from, again, keeping everybody safe. We may be able to save that with some gloves, and we'll let you know. The auction, that's a big change this year. We're going to be, to keep everybody apart, and so you're not having to touch notepads and things like that, we're actually going to be using an app this year. So you can donate through your phone, just hit the little button. So this is two great purposes of this, or functions of this. One, keeps everybody safe and apart. Two, you can bid as often as you like. You can just keep bidding. You don't even have to get up from your table. You can be at home and bid. And so we expect to see a lot more people participating there. Volunteers. Oh, and we'll be putting that information out ahead of time, so don't worry about that. We definitely still need some volunteers for this. This is a fun event to volunteer for. Jen May is going to be your contact for that. So her email is jgm14@psu.edu. If you've done it before, it's a lot of people just having a good time and being outside and getting to have a drink or two. So please contact her if you're free on September 14th. Sorry, I forgot to mention that day. Last but not least, if you want to have some fun ahead of time, Saturday, August 29th, that's this coming Saturday, Mike Osterman is putting on a croquet party to practice for that. You don't have to be participating in the event. If you just want to go have some fun and hang out with Mike, it is at his house this Saturday, and you can RSVP directly with him. So Mike at oshermanpainting.com. You can call him at 324-0008 as well. So he'd love to see you out there this Saturday, the 29th. And that's it. So again, we are having this. We're full force. It's going to be a great event. We'd love to see you out there. And thank you all very much for your attendance and your sponsorships. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Darren, and congratulations again to you and your wife on the birth of little Henry. He's, what is he, in the class of 2039, I guess? Oh my goodness. Congratulations to you, and thanks to you and the fundraising committee for all the additional efforts to ensure that those participating are safe, and also to make the auction virtual this year. I'm sure you had many challenges to navigate. We also appreciate the support of the Country Club to keep all of our members safe. Thank you so much. Next, we'll move on to the business spotlight for today, and that will feature York County Register of Wills and Clerk of Orphans Court. Past President Brian Tate was sworn in on January 3rd as York County's 42nd elected Register and Clerk, following the retirement of fellow Rotarian Brad Jacobs. Upon taking office, Brian hired Mac Brillhart to be the solicitor and retained 2 chief deputies who provide more than 50 years of combined experience. While the main responsibilities of the office are on the slide today, Brian's role in his first year or first couple months has really been chief innovator, implementing major changes to the department and in a very quick fashion. Following the order of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court and President Judge of York County Common Pleas, the Judicial Center closed to the public in March, except for emergency filings and hearings of the Orphans Court. While that order extended through May 31st, the Judicial Center reopened to the public on June 8th. President Judge Adams ordered limited public interaction through December 31st, including masks worn in all public places and technology use wherever possible. Within 2 weeks of the shutdown, Brian implemented significant virtual changes. First, a virtual probate of wills and administration of estates, where petitioning executors or administrators scheduling a virtual meeting, including an estate attorney or an attorney of your own, with the register, deputy register, or staff after submitting email documents, including a will, if available, death certificate, and unsigned petition. Instructions for this process are on the office website that's listed on the slide. 2, virtual marriage license applications. We know that weddings have been disrupted, but thank you for Brian for helping keeping the love alive. So this is where couples e-file marriage applications and schedule a virtual meeting with a clerk, deputy clerk, or staff after submitting the email documents on the office website as shown as well. In addition, Brian opened up the office's case management system to the public for online document viewing and for printing, except for adoption documents which are sealed. Public access can be granted from either department's website listed on the slide, and attorneys in our community are also given free login accounts to the system. To support this virtual environment, Brian added the ability to make payments with credit cards or debit cards for estate administration, registration of wills filings, inheritance tax payments, case management, document printing, marriage license applications, and orphans court filings. And Brian is following the lead of our common pleas judges and is holding Register of Wills estate hearings virtually to settle estate administration disputes. Brian, thank you for innovating and adding virtual capabilities during the pandemic to serve our community members when they are experiencing important life moments. Thank you, Brian. Next is our poll. Ben.
All right. Well, today's poll is regarding the Paycheck Protections Program loans. So I'm going to go ahead and launch it right now, and you should be able to see it pop up on your screen. But this is the poll, and you can go ahead and vote at any time. Has your business or your company, A, successfully secured a PPP loan, applied but were not successful in securing a PPP loan, were eligible but unable to apply, or were not able to apply at all? So you can go ahead and vote. Our votes are coming in, and we are going to be able to see these answers in just a little bit. Going to give you about 15 more seconds here. Looks like we have 18% of you in, 25. Looks like votes are coming in pretty strong right now. Go ahead and vote if you haven't already. Again, this is a Paycheck Protections Program loans question. Has your business or your company successfully secured a loan, applied but were not successful, were eligible but unable to apply, or were not able to apply at all? So keep on voting, 5 more seconds, and we're going go ahead and vote it now. And you should be able to see the results pop up on your screen there. It looks like the majority of you were not able to apply at all. Close to 40% or so said that you were able to successfully secure a PPP loan. And it looks like a small percentage of you were eligible but unable to apply right now. And that's the poll.
Thank you, Ben. And I'd like to thank all the members of our club from the banking community who shifted into gear very quickly to bring these loans to members of our club and certainly throughout our community. We appreciate your Herculean efforts. Next, I have the honor of introducing our speaker, Dave Bode. Along with former Rotarian Dave Keach, Dave Bode served as the principal member in the formation of Rock Commercial Real Estate, which was launched in 2001. Dave Bode currently serves as the firm's managing partner. He has more than 32 years of experience in real estate and holds industry designations, including Certified Commercial Investment Member and Society of Industrial and Office Realtors. Dave's specialty are owner representation and industrial markets. He has a thorough knowledge of investment analysis and consulting for corporate and institutional users and investors. Rock's clients include Dentsply, Graham Capital Management, Harley-Davidson, Keystruck Construction, the Wolf Organization, UPMC Memorial Hospital, and Utz Quality Foods. The Central Penn Business Journal recognized Dave as a top 10 leasing broker, and he is a past recipient of their 40 Under 40 award. Dave serves on the Professional Standards Committee for the Realtors Association of York and Adams Counties. He is on the board of directors of York Traditions Bank, Better York, the Margaret E. Malholm Foundation, and Logos Academy, where he serves on the Site and Facilities Committee. The real estate market, along with many other industries, has suffered a loss during COVID-19. Dave will speak about the health of the real estate market pre-COVID-19, during the pandemic, and how the market will likely shift going forward. He will also offer suggestions on how we can protect our community and businesses post-pandemic and into the future. And Dave, I know this was a busy day for you. I understand you presented at EC Club this morning, so you are in demand. I'd also like to ask Rotarians, please use the question selections section screen on the right of your screen to submit your questions for Dave at any time. I know there'll be many, so please get them in whenever they come to you. All right, thanks a lot, Dave.
Thank you, Ann. I appreciate the introduction and more importantly, the opportunity to present. We're very passionate about real estate here and very excited to share with you with some of our experiences. Obviously, in today's environment, it's a constant change. I almost think that everyone now can be considered a weatherman because every forecast seems to be inaccurate. Everything changes at a moment's notice. Hopefully, we can give you some insight looking back pre-COVID. Leading into 2020, the overall U.S. commercial real estate transactions were actually up 10% in the first 8 weeks of 2020 compared to the same time in 2019. And actually, 2019 was also a strong year. We at ROC experienced the same thing as we had our best first 2 months ever in 2020. We were very much looking forward to the 2020 year when everything changed here in March 19th. Locally, in general, all the activity had been strong. The prices were either maintaining, rising in some areas, and most of the vacancy rates were low. I'm going to go through that here bit by bit between each of the classifications. The office market locally was keeping pace with the past 5 to 6 years with minimal change in rates and vacancies. Retail, the development continued of smaller freestanding retail units or smaller, 3 to 4 unit type retail centers. QSRs, or for us old people, that for me, the fast food restaurants were continuing to expand their geographical footprint. Some were actually redesigning their models and needing to relocate because of the redesigning of the models. An example was Panera Bread was going from a larger 6,500 square foot unit. Their newer units are 4,000 square feet with drive-through, perfect for now a pandemic. I probably wish they would have started that years ahead. Another one was an opposite one where Domino's delivery. Now, if you see on Mount Rose Avenue, they have a dine-in option. So again, something that they're trying and looking at a little bit differently. But I want to focus a little bit on big box retail users, which were already declining pre-COVID due to e-commerce sales. The first you can see here in 1998, about 12 years ago, retail sales were at 2.6 trillion. E-commerce, there's a little line down here in the bottom, which was at 5 billion. E-commerce only represented 0.2% back in 1998, 12 years ago. Fast forward to 2015, retail sales jumped pretty dramatically to 4.7 trillion a year, and e-commerce was on its rise to 340 billion, or 7.2% of the overall retail sales. And then to last year, again, retail sales were continuing to rise to 5.47 trillion. And e-commerce started taking off dramatically in the past few years. And now in 2019, 10.73% or 587 billion of the retail trade was through e-commerce. Now looking forward into a 2020 estimate, retail sales are looking to be down. They're estimating that retail sales will be about 4.89 trillion. But again, e-commerce continues to grow to 710 billion, or now 14.5% of all retail is actually done online. Now, I'm sure it's no secret as to who leads this e-commerce trade, but you can see down here in the bottom, Amazon accounts for 38.7% of the total e-commerce. That's $275 billion a year that they trade. And the next closest is Walmart at 5.3%, which is about 38 billion. We've also had some companies that didn't fare out too well when you're looking at, especially at the local market. Stores like Bon-Ton, who was based in New York, was closed. Unfortunately, this was also a large contributor to local nonprofits. I'm sure Ann can attest that, Bonton not being around certainly puts a hindrance on just one corporate entity that provided capital to our local community. Also, other major retailers were closing. J.C. Penney's, Sears, Kmart, Pier 1, which I'm not sure, I think they started the process pre-COVID, but I think they actually closed during COVID. And then Dick's consolidation from 2 locations to 1, and there might be others, but I think you get the point that the decline had started way before the pandemic. On the industrial side, with all this e-commerce, it's interesting to know that the eMarketer.com reported for every 1 billion in national e-commerce sales growth requires an additional 1.25 million square feet in the US. So when you look at a lot of these industrial big box buildings being built in York, you think that, when's it going to end? Well, I will tell you the values have been increasing, the lease rates and the sale prices once these properties are leased and then resold is increasing at such a rapid pace for the first time, and actually in my now going on 34 years in the industry. So why are all these people looking at York? Well, first of all, they're not just looking at York, they're really looking at central Pennsylvania. But we're located within 500 miles of 36% of the US population. And believe it or not, 53% of Canada's population. We're also located very close to 3 of the 4 primary ports, being Philadelphia, Baltimore, and New York. Now, most of these users prefer to be along I-81 corridor, but over the years, they found that as they continued to build along the I-81 corridor, they didn't have the workforce to support all the growth, and they started looking at other areas with good proximity to I-83, I-81, and the Turnpike, which obviously York has. Also, York has the infrastructure and available workforce. It's also interesting that, York is really known for manufacturing, so I thought I'd throw some information in about the Pennsylvania employment that's related to manufacturing. The US average is 8%. Pennsylvania, 8.87% of the Pennsylvania employment is tied up in manufacturing, which actually ranks 4th nationally by the number of employees. And when you look at York, we're at 13.84%, just behind Lebanon. And you can see that all the counties surrounding us, primarily here in the central Pennsylvania region, all have the strong industrial manufacturing background, which actually is very helpful in times like now. Other trends pre-COVID. This is one that I don't know if many of you pay attention to. I know I do, because you mentioned a couple of these companies in the past. But over the last 10 plus years, and I'm focusing on 18 different organizations, that something has happened. First is Dentsply. And these are in no order by timeline. They're random as far as the timing. Some are 10, maybe 12 years old, but some are brand new. Dentsply merged with Sirona, now Dentsply Sirona, and now they're shifting their manufacturing, which is a recent announcement, out of York to North Carolina. Falscraft sold cable TV to Comcast, which is based out of Philadelphia. Their pottery division to Lifetime Brands, which is out of New York. And their primary source of income was the radio stations to Cumulus, and that's based out of Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. The Wolf organization sold a little while back to 10X Capital Management. 10X Capital is based out of New York. McLaren Plastic merged with Amtech Corporation in Yakima, Washington, who is owned by Blackford Capital out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Now, this is going back a long time. This started in 20 years ago, I guess. That's about when we built the Commerce Center. Miller and Company changed to Beard Miller. Then they merged with Parente to create Parente Beard. Then they were acquired by Baker Tilly, who's out of Chicago. And then after that, they actually acquired SF and Company. Now we know SF and Company location on St. Charles Way was closed shortly thereafter. Baker Tilly just made a change at the end of last year and downsized their York operation, their satellite operation, and moved a lot of people into Lancaster. Interesting thing, they had all their space built out, ready to move in right when the pandemic hit. The pandemic hit and they couldn't move in because they couldn't get their space inspected, even though it was vacant, but the inspection companies were shut down. So that's one little glitch we had in the real estate market. There was many others during this time, which I'm sure most of you have had other stories that you can attest to. The next, Memorial Hospital was acquired by CHS out of Tennessee, who was bought by Pinnacle out of Harrisburg, who then immediately merged with UPMC out of Pittsburgh. Susquehanna Bank purchased BB&T, who then merged with Sun Trust to create Truist, who's located out of North Carolina. Some of the effects there, the mortgage underwriting of BB&T actually vacated about 14,000 square feet at 3501 Concord Road, which is out in the East End, visible to Route 30, previously known as Lincoln General Insurance. Fortunately, even though that space became vacant, it's actually being built out right now for a local field FBI office to move from Harrisburg down to York. We suspect that those improvements will be completed by the end of this year. A more recent transaction, Penn Waste sold to Waste Connections out of Ontario, Canada. Utz merged with Collier Creek Holdings out of New York and will soon be publicly traded. American Hydro sold to Wärtsilä Seals and Bearings out of Finland. The Gladfelder Insurance Group, which was an ESOP, sold to AIG, who's based out of New York. Strine Printing sold to Menasha, who's based out of Wisconsin. R.H. Shepard sold to Nor Bremse, based out of Munich, Germany. York International, about 8-9 years ago, was sold to JCI in Glendale, Wisconsin. Hanover Shoes, this might have been more than 10 to 12 years, but Hanover Shoes sold to Clark's North America region. The North America regions run out of the Massachusetts office. Recently, Gladfelder Paper sold off Spring Grove Mill to Pixel, which is owned by Lindsay Goldberg, a New York-based private equity firm. York Container partnered with Atlantic Packaging Products out of Ontario, Canada. And last, York Wall Coverings purchased by High Capital Partners out of New York. I know I took a long time to go through that, but I think it's important to look at these locations on the screen and all the names that were up there. These large corporations have a huge effect on our local economy in a lot of different ways. And adding to that, we've heard recent announcements, obviously, with Gladfelder Paper beginning to relocate their corporate offices from 96 South George Street over the next 18 plus months to Charlotte, North Carolina. And Dentsply just recently announced that it's moving the manufacturing part that's located on West College Avenue here in the near future to also to Charlotte, North Carolina. The impact on York, I mean, obviously increased vacancies could lead to lower real estate values if not absorbed, lower median income with fewer higher paying employment opportunities. The local income tax will be reduced. Obviously, fewer higher paying job opportunities. Nonprofits are greatly affected by fewer corporate donations, again, as I think Hen can attest to. Also, speaking to fellow associates, also attorneys and accountants who've represented a lot of these clients for many, many years, actually helped with some of these transactions, actually no longer have a client. I know a lot of the transactions we've completed over the years, new corporate real estate firms in Texas and New York, you name it, are coming in and actually handling the transactions going forward. So it does have a big effect on the community. So what about now all that great news? What about the real estate market during COVID? Now this red phase started March 19th, lasted for 9 weeks. Even though federally real estate was deemed essential business from the very beginning, Pennsylvania was real estate was deemed non-essential, and residential practically shut down in the beginning for probably 6+ weeks of that. Commercial sales continued. Commercial sales typically have a pipeline of 3 to 12 months, development opportunities even up to 24 months. So we're handling a lot of the transactions that were already in place pre-COVID. Commercial leasing seemed to focus really more on the existing leases that were in place and working out abatements or deferrals, mainly on the retail side. When you look at the April rents received by a survey that Newmark Knight did, I think in June, they stated that 46.2% of the national retailers had difficulty or did not pay April rent. And in some cases, in some of the properties we manage and some of the big national, they didn't even communicate with you for 6 to 8 weeks because they're looking at across the country trying to figure everything out. And you could call for an update to see where they're going to do, if they're going to pay rent, and they just wouldn't pay or communicate. So, but fortunately, there's some lenders, well, many lenders showed leniency towards owners of retail facilities. The CARES Act was instrumental in saving many small to mid-sized companies. By the SBA reported by June 30th, there were 458 loans, PPP loans, that were provided at a total of just over 512 billion at that time. Fortunately, Pennsylvania ranked number 6, and the PA firms received about 20.5 million, or about 4% of the total PPP loan money. Retail was definitely impacted the most. The store closures in 2020 are now leading into 13,700 store closures nationally. And although I mentioned all the major retailers that closed in 2019 locally, so this started in 2019. In 2020, it was an additional 47% increase since 2019 in store closures. Some of the hardest hit were national apparel industry, especially more of the fine clothing, because events were canceled. Everyone's working remotely. And again, most people, I know you're lying if you didn't say you were wearing your pajamas on your Zoom meeting, but a lot of us were dressed very casually during the red pandemic, or the red phase. Travel, hospitality, I mean, airlines, hotels were shut down. Restaurants initially were shut down. Entertainment, and some of the entertainment still shut down. Huge effect across the country. Obviously, the essential retail, the grocery, convenience drugstores had sharp increases. I heard a comment the other day that grocery stores in the beginning were looking at this, that every week was Thanksgiving. So it was their prime time week after week. Unfortunately, that was not the case for most people. Yellow phase, I can pretty much skip because it was really only 3 weeks long, weeks 10 through 12. And again, Pennsylvania was still the only state deemed non-essential until May 19th, which was just a few days before the green phase. In the green phase, it started week 13. We're now week 23 and counting. Going into the green phase initially seemed promising. You think green, hey, we're getting back. I think we're still in the yellow phase, and in some instances, some institutions are still in, I think, a red phase. But we talked about the retail in the beginning, and you can see in 2016, 2017, how much space was being absorbed: 200,000 square feet in 16, about 100,000 square feet in 17. And you can see in 2018, it started its shift, where there was not a lot of new absorption of space. And then you look at 2019, and here in New York County, we had about 225,000 net square feet absorbed, which when that happens, obviously your vacancy rate increases, and that's continuing in the trend today. The vacancy in the Q1 of 99 was 5.5%. Q2 of 2020 jumped up to 7.97% vacancy, which is the largest change in vacancy between office, industrial, and retail. Shopping center vacancy is actually 11.22%, but the total vacant square footage is 1.6 million, and the total retail square footage in the market total is 28.86 million square feet, which sort of hovers between the smaller market, the office, and the industrial market when you look at square footage. Owners are already having issues. Mall owners, one example is CBL filed bankruptcy. CBL owns a Galleria Mall. They also own quite a few malls and major shopping centers across the country, obviously being affected dramatically pre-COVID and now even more so during COVID, as a lot of the retailers who are occupying the space may not even be paying rent yet. I would say that, again, since April, a lot of changes have been made with retail tenants on some deferral type or modified lease terms. I think 90% of them are now into new lease terms, but that also includes some additional free rent for a period of time to get them through this next holiday season, and hoping that the holiday is financially beneficial. Next, we'll talk about the office market. The office market has been very tight over the last 5 years. It's only varied about just under 0.6%. You can see 1999 vacancy rate was at 5.8%. Quarter two of 2020, it actually dropped to 5.66%. There's 760,000 square feet of vacant office space, and the total square footage is 13.17 million square feet, which is the smallest market out of all of them. The rates are still holding steady for now, and vacancy, again, still is remaining flat since 2016. When we looked at our database, we know that there's at least 400,000 square feet of office space that's ready to, or leases that are ready to expire in the next 12 months. That represents 30%. The lease, also we're seeing lease terms shortening, which typically were 5, 7, or 10 years. Most of them now are 2 to 3 years, and that becomes problematic because there's a lot of tenant improvements typically required for office build outs. And office workers, believe it or not, are more concerned with open office environments and less shared spaces. If you look nationally or globally, WeWorks has that open office environment for shared spaces, and they're hurting dramatically. We'll finish with the industrial market. The industrial market, as you can see, 2017, 2018 had 1.5 or 1.25 million square feet absorbed in 17, 2.25 million square feet absorbed in 18. You can see a slight negative absorption in 2019, but I can say that's due to a lot of projects that were built here in end of 18 into 19, some of which are still vacant. But all in all, the current vacancy rate is 4.13%, up from 3.3. But again, I think that's a lot of the speculative big box development. The total industrial square footage in our market's 80.6 million square feet. There's also other projects that were approved by local municipalities in the county, 15 year to date. And these are not all industrial. These are also some commercial, some church expansions, things like that. But the good sign is 11 were approved after April 1st. Hopefully that those construction projects continue to take off and they're not stalled. Residential, I will skip over for the sake of time, but if you need any information on that, Shauna Tarosa at RAAC has a phenomenal presentation on that. So where are we post-COVID? Well, I guess the first question is, when will it end? The longer it ends, or the longer it takes to get past this, is going to have a greater and greater effect on every organization. How long will the government benefits continue to extend? When will the unemployed actually want to go back to work, and in some cases for less? They're estimating that the gross domestic product will not fully recover until latter part of 2021. In some cases, hotel and travel is probably not going to fully recover until 2022, 2023. One, over health concerns, but also changes in corporate travel policies. Larger corporations looking to spend less money because of the weaker GDP. The higher unemployment will constrain corporate travel well into 2022. So we see the hospitality side being affected far beyond 2021. Some restaurants are not going to survive. We're seeing more closures of restaurants and restaurants coming on the market, especially those folk that were relying more on alcohol sales. National retailers will not survive without a strategy to improve their user experience and drive better relationships with their audience. So a lot of them are revamping how they deliver their message and their product. Shopping centers with grocery, pharmacy, QSRs, the quick service restaurants, and other essential services like urgent care will still remain a strong investment. Values in shopping centers and malls without a majority of essential services will certainly decrease in value. And I think funding will actually become difficult to obtain as well, as banks are being a little bit more cautious with some of their clients, and rightfully so. More retailers will have to rely on e-commerce. And I looked at, and I'll jump to office market. There's an interesting study that was done by Cushman and Wakefield over the past couple of years as more and more people work remotely. They've done this in quite a few countries, 2.5 million data points. They say working remotely, 75% are still working effectively. However, 50% are struggling to connect with company culture. 54% are struggling with lower levels of energy and well-being, primarily not taking enough breaks. The other interesting thing was 70% of the younger generation have work from home issues. They're smaller apartments or houses that were more open oriented. They didn't have private offices. They have children are in school. Again, it created a lot of issues. They still think the office will remain a critical driver of culture, learning, and personal connections. As we could test earlier this week, broadband issues were also an issue. I think I heard Zoom crashed earlier this week when school started. I think we will see in the office market increased activity as some office users are going to start shifting around with some of their size requirements. But again, when you look at some of the, I think we've accounted for about 50,000+ square feet that we think is going to become vacant over the next 12 months with some of these renewals. But it was only going to change the overall vacancy rate by 0.5%. So again, not too worried. I think values will remain steady on the office side. Industrial will certainly remain strong over the next 3 to 5 years. There's a prediction because of e-commerce by 2025, only 5 years away, that there's going to be a need for 1 billion square feet of additional industrial space in the U.S. It's interesting too. There's going to be, retail inventory shortages were certainly noticeable, and supply chains are now focusing more on resiliency and less over efficiency, meaning they don't care about the return as making sure that they overstock on product. And if Prologis predicted that if suppliers begin to overstock by 5% to be prepared for the upcoming holiday, that increase alone would add an additional demand of 500 million to 700 million square feet of industrial space just to absorb that excess product to make sure that we can supply the retailers. Multifamily will continue to be a strong market, maintain values. What's interesting, 83% of the millennials indicate that student debt is holding them back from purchasing the first home. Their average debt's $41,000. I think layoffs and reduced workforce may force some home buyers back into renting. Residential, the COVID has changed the residential buyer preference. 43.5% are now looking for an extra bedroom or office in their design. 13% shifted away from the multifamily to single family detached. And 22% are actually less concerned about commuting. So there's definitely a shift to more rural areas versus urban areas. So overall, York has usually weathered any down cycle with less impact and has rebounded quicker than most US markets. We believe that this will be true during this pandemic. I think retail will be a little bit slower, but retail, there's always new product, new ideas that come out, and eventually those vacancies will absorb or shift and be redeveloped into other opportunities. But more importantly, I go back to this corporate drain from York County. What can we do together to protect our community from erosion of companies moving or being acquired, or having the decisions and net earnings shifting away from York? Support local community resources at all times, if at all possible. We need to do a better job attracting and supporting new companies that will grow to become our new major employers in the future. With that, I want to thank you, and I'll open it up for any questions and answers.
Thanks a lot, Dave. I do have several good questions for you. Number one, as Dentsply looks to relocate, and does ROC have interest in their vacant building? If so, what type of manufacturing or business do you envision going into that space?
Actually, Dentsply is using a broker more in the Philadelphia region for all of their transactions. Have communicated with them. They have not put their manufacturing facility on the market because it's a multi-level building. It's not accustomed to what most manufacturers need. And with the location, we think it's probably a prime opportunity for redevelopment. Fortunately for York, Dentsply is making a commitment to take the office employees from that location, which are about 250 employees, and they're actually leasing about 23 to 24,000 square feet here in the Susquehanna Commerce Center. Parts of the spaces were owned by Comcast, and another space owned by a local investor. We were involved in that transaction, so that was beneficial. Again, I think repurposing their manufacturing building makes a lot of sense. I'm glad we're not losing 250 office employees, but already there's a short-term benefit of absorbing 24,000 square feet, because Comcast has vacated. I don't think I mentioned that earlier, but Comcast had started their transition of working remotely and doing some consolidation pre-COVID, and they finished that up right at the beginning of the pandemic. But they vacated 50,000 square feet here in the Commerce Center.
Thanks, Dave. To your point regarding the inefficiencies of remote work, how do you see that impacting the real estate market in the long term, and what physical office changes do you foresee?
We've heard a lot of things, and I guess well, first of all, I know that some companies are taking advantage of the opportunity to do some construction work now while their people are working remotely. I walked into a space yesterday by one of the largest office tenants and owners in the market, a 14,000 square foot space. There was no one there. Their lease ends the end of this year, but they're not even using any part of their space. I know I've heard from designers that they're looking at changing ingress and egress of facilities to accommodate to maybe more private offices, or create larger open areas, larger cubicles to accommodate the distancing. I'd caution people in doing that too much. I mean, this is a unique pandemic. It will end. I know here at ROC, we do have an open office environment. Now we have limited our occupancy to about 25 to 30% to adhere to the guidelines, and others are working remotely. We're rotating people in just to get them acclimated to actually working in an office, so they don't get used to working too much at home. But I'd be cautious to spend a lot of money. Hopefully we don't have to live this pandemic again.
Amen to that, Brother Bode. Well, Dave, we really appreciate you joining us here today. That's all the time we have. There are a couple more questions, but in essence, in respect of your time and our members' times, we're going to move on to close the meeting today. And we actually do have, in lieu of a speaker's gift, we provide a book donation, and we'll give you an opportunity to sign the book plate in the front of the book. That book is How Do You Feel by Lizzie Rockwell, and it will be presented to the YWCA of York for their child care. Thank you very much. Rotarians, thank you. Our program next week will be both virtual and live for a limited audience at the Country Club of York for a conversation with Congressman Scott Perry, incumbent, candidate for the 10th Congressional District, moderated by past President Mike Summers. Our closing song today is Shania Twain's Feel Like a Woman. Have a great week, everyone. Take care.